Hey everybody, Nick Nack here, back again for another video. After being busy with work, I finally have time to do this better late than never video, which of course is my top 10 games of 2019 countdown. I gotta say, 2019 was an alright year for games. There's a fair amount of good ones and a fair amount of disappointments. That doesn't mean it was bad though, since I'm still making this vid. Now, if you've been watching my countdowns for a while, you pretty much know the rules. 1. These are my favorites, so it's my opinion. 2. I haven't played every single 2019 game that was labeled amazing. So unfortunately, don't expect games like Fire Emblem Three Houses, Disco Elysium, and Sekiro to be on this list, because I was unable to try them out. And 3, because of work, I didn't have time to beat every single game on here, but I've played enough to know how the games work. So with that out of the way, let's begin. Starting up the countdown at number 10 is Indivisible. Now unfortunately, I still have not beaten this game yet, but I've played a fair amount of it. This was one of my most anticipated games for this year, because it just looked different from anything I've played. So once I've picked it up, I have to say that I'm really loving what the game has to offer. The game plays like an interesting mashup of Metroidvania meets Valkyrie Profile, and I do think it works from what I've been playing so far. If you played the 2D Metroidvania, then you know what its gameplay consists of, and it's serviceable. While it's good, the other parts of Indivisible's gameplay is where I think it's enjoyable the most. From it, you play as a party of 4 characters, in which they are assigned as an attack with each of the face buttons. Depending on what buttons plus directional buttons you choose, your characters can perform different attacks, and each one tends to be different. Speaking of characters, one thing I love about them are not only their different playstyles, but there's a ton to collect where I feel like it's a monster collecting game, be it in the story or secret areas. Talking more about characters, I also am enjoying the protagonist Ajna, as she does have a likable personality, and I think is nicely supported by her voice actor, who perfectly fits. Now, lastly, other than these two things, one of the biggest reasons on why I'm loving this game is its presentation. This game is hand-drawn and it looks pleasing to eyes, be it characters' animation or the various locales of the game. I'm so far enjoying my time with this game. The only reason why it starts the list though is because the aforementioned beginning, plus wishing I can fight more battles. But besides that, this is a pretty good game. For my number 9, I'm going with Mortal Kombat 9. I've been a big fan of Mortal Kombat for a while now, and I definitely was looking forward to this game ever since its announcement. So when I finally got to try it, I do say why I've liked what they did with the game for the most part. Honestly, the fighting and presentation feels the same as past NetherRealm games, except with a changed special meter. But I consider it to be one of those if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of games. Instead, NetherRealm would rather do what they do best for their games, and that's try to add what they've done in their past games and put in this. The combat towers are back and will be what you'll spend most of your time on, if it's not online matches, and they've done much to make it different with putting power-ups and small challenges. The gear system from Injustice 2 is put into here, and that works pretty well. The crypt is back and has been completely revamped, as it's now a third-person exploration minigame, which I find surprisingly better than past games. And of course, NetherRealm has upped the story mode as usual. Like always, they tend to bring out a good story mode, and this one is no exception, with providing a good main villain and giving a plausible reason for bringing dead characters back into a game. Spoilers here, but how 11's story ends is just so interesting. It makes me question what they can do for 12. The only reason why it's so low though is because there were much better games than this game this year, and I do miss the X-Ray moves. And Striker, of course. Put back Striker in this game. But nonetheless, if you enjoyed past NetherRealm titles, I say get this once the complete edition happens, because you know how WB always tends to do that shit. Coming in at number 8 is My Friend Pedro. This was a game I was interested in, but didn't have the effort in wanting to play, up until Game Pass. Thank you, Microsoft, for a service like that. So once I tried it, oh boy was this game surprisingly good. My Friend Pedro is best described as a run and gun with the purpose of gaining a high score by having stylish kills with the help of various items and the slow time ability. Going through the protagonist's adventure can be described as being intriguing, because on top of the gameplay, the world and enemies have interesting variety, from fighting bounty hunters in the city to fighting LARPers in the sewer. It also helps as not every stage consists of the same old formula of running around and shooting people, as there's a lot of platforming in it, consisting of jumping and rolling towards walls and other sides of the stages. There's also moments of falling from the sky or riding motorcycles that make up the final level of an area, which are fun ways to end it. Now, to provide more positives, you might think I'm weird in considering this good, but one of the best things about this game, other than the aforementioned, is the fact that it only takes 4 hours to beat with plenty of replayability. That is a good length for a title like this. Some people would take it as a flaw, but for people like me that has plenty to play, it's about just right. Speaking of flaws, while nothing too serious, they're the reasons for this game just being at number 8, and that's the story and presentation. Presentation-wise, the characters didn't do too much for me, and except for one area, the levels feel just okay. As for story, it's a basic revenge plot, and near the end, it was very predictable. The final boss wasn't, however. Despite these, My Friend Pedro is a great game to play, and that's why it deserves to be on the spot on my list. Number 7 goes to Cthulhu Saves Christmas. If you see my past countdowns, then you know that I'm a big fan of any game announced by Zeboyd Games. So when this was announced, I knew I had to pick out day 1. If you know the developer, then you know that this game, like their past ones, is inspired by JRPGs of the 4th generation of consoles. And like their past games, this one tries to improve on some things that make the genre great, as well as add new things to it. Speaking of past games, this game is very interesting in the sense that it combines the story and characters of one of their earlier games, Cthulhu Saves the World, with the gameplay of their most recent release, Cosmic Star Heroine, and man does it work well. Story-wise, they provide the same premise of Cthulhu being powerless, teaming with others, and having to fight a group of people to gain his powers back. It's pretty basic, but what makes up for it is the good humorous dialogue between the characters, especially references to the genre and breaking the fourth wall. As for the gameplay, I think Zeboyd has upped themselves again. because although this is a spin-off game, they've added so much features that can work real well in future games. I consider a spin-off not only for the aforementioned, but because this game is more linear than past games, as it has a calendar-like system. You're put into an area, fight random battles while trying to find the area's boss to fight, go to town and visit areas that let you improve your character, rinse and repeat. I'd say it works well, and for the price and its length, I recommend buying this game and playing it during Christmas, as the name suggests. At number 6 is Rover Saves the Universe. For the past year or two ago, I finally jumped on the Rick and Morty bandwagon and have been loving the series ever since. So once I found out that one of the co-creators of the show and this company Squanch Games was making a new game, I knew I had to get it. After knowing about it more and finally finding it for cheap inside the Target, I do have to say that this game is quite possibly one of the biggest sleeper hits of 2019. This title is an action-adventure game where you play as this one guy controlling a character named Rover, and as the two of them, you have to solve puzzles, collect items, and fight various enemies. The game is originally intended to be played in VR, and as a VR game, it plays just fine, nothing too amazing. Also talking about VR, this might sound ignorant of me, but while the game and the world look vibrant, the graphical power feels nothing special. In return though, this game has some of the most cleverly hilarious writing I've ever seen in a game. The story is a simple, powerful being trying to destroy the world plot, but how it comes to fruition is just great, because about every 5 minutes, something happens that makes me chuckle, be it whatever, dialogue, jokes, or the actions the characters said or did. It also helps with the game giving you the freedom of choice during some of these sections. Now, I'm not going to provide examples because they're that funny. The closest I'll give is that the ending is well worth the playthrough. Although it only takes 4 or 5 hours to beat, playing this game was well worth my time, and it should be your time as well. For my number 5, I'm putting The Outer Worlds on this list. Unfortunately, just like number 7 and 10 on my list, this is another game I still not have beaten, but I put about 9 hours into it, and I'm confident enough to put it this high on my list. I've been pretty interested in this game after seeing its trailer, and thanks to Game Pass of course, I tried it, and goddamn, is this a pretty well made RPG. This game is a standard first-person RPG similar to Bethesda and Fallout games, with all the bells and whistles that make up one, such as weapon and armor durability, character choices, character customization, and various worlds and towns to explore. I found this title to be pretty relaxing when it comes to gameplay, because it's an RPG where you explore and shoot whatever is trying to kill you. It also helps with how Obsidian doesn't make it too complicated, as leveling up is easy and you don't need to manage all the skills that are required to progress forward. When it comes to the presentation, the voice acting and audio is pretty good, and the planets you visit look really damn nice, well the details on the settings. Speaking of planets, another thing I have to mention is that compared to most open world games, Obsidian doesn't bog every town in here with various missions in the big world. They have you go to close-knit areas that provide just a handful. But probably the biggest positive has got to be the choices you make. In this game, You have to decide on aligning with certain groups, and whichever ones you decide provides some interesting outcomes. Like the first one I was given, I decided to choose one thing, only for it to lead to the opposite of what I wanted, and I was surprised a ton from it to a point where I restarted the game. Stuff like that is making me more focused on what dialogue to choose, because I might end up being wrong. Also, on the subject of dialogue, I find it to be well written. But pretty much, I'm enjoying my time with the Outer Worlds, and as someone who's been trying to get more into Western RPGs, I'd say this is a great way to start. Coming in at number 4 is Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth. If you know me, then you know I was going to put this on the list alone just because it's a Persona game. But putting that aside, I really think this is another great spin-off from the franchise, despite still not beating it yet. PQ2 is a dungeon crawling RPG similar to the Etrian Odyssey games, in which you gather a team of characters ranging from Personas 3 through 5 and do the usual things one does in a dungeon crawler. Obviously, what makes this one different from the others is the Persona system, which works equally to the mainline series. But the catch is that every party member can equip another persona rather than having just one, which provides an interesting style of play. As someone who's put time into the first game, 2's gameplay and presentation feels exactly the same as 1, which isn't a bad thing, as I personally don't mind at all. Fortunately, aside from adding characters from 5, they've added various things to the gameplay that keep it fresh. Compared to the first Persona Q, P Studio made an excellent decision of making Joker the protagonist and have just one whole story, focusing on 5's crew being introduced to the cast of the other games, rather than having separate paths where you follow the other protagonists. Other additions they did that I thought was well put was unison attacks, where we see characters team up with one another. They're very fun to look at, and though it happens at random, they definitely make the game easier. Talking about more additions to PQ2, you can't talk about a Persona game without mentioning the music, and this title has some enjoyable tunes, especially some remixes of past Persona tracks and 3 new great battle themes. I'm currently 80 plus hours into it, and I'm still loving it. The only reason why I put not top 3 though, other than the final 3 games being too good, is that I admit that it does feel too long. Some of the side missions, compared to the first Persona Q, pale in comparison, and the story is starting to be somewhat predictable after playing the first PQ. But overall, I'm loving this game, and for Persona fans, this is a title you should definitely get. Number 3 goes to the Resident Evil 2 remake. At first, I was debating on playing this game because it was a remake, and I was hesitant on putting remakes on this list. But I said fuck it and rented it once I renewed my GameFly subscription, and hot damn do I not regret that decision, because this is one of the biggest surprise games for me of this year. Unfortunately, this is another game I haven't beaten yet, but I'm currently 5 hours into Leon's campaign, and if Claire's is somewhat similar, I'm confident enough to put this game on my list. As from the name, this is a remake to the second Resident Evil game, and when it comes to remakes, this is one of the best you'll ever play. Capcom made this title a third-person survival horror game like their current games, and man does it play great. Now unfortunately, I'm a Resident Evil newcomer, and I haven't played the original RE2, so when playing this game, I made the big mistake of playing it like 4 and 5, and ooh boy, I'm pretty happy to say it plays nothing like 4 and 5. This game right here is the definition of survival horror, and as someone who considers this to be one of their first forays into the genre, I can't stop thinking about how great it plays. It has the typical stuff of a Resident Evil game, like item management and unlocking areas by searching around for keys. It definitely helps with how well crafted these areas are, because not only do they look good, but exploring them and finding which routes to go feel exciting. But where this game shines the most is the combat, as it has to make you think on your feet. To mention RE's 4 and 5, I thought you can just shoot the enemies on their legs or head and just go straight for a kill. But that wasn't the case in this game, as they're like bullet sponges. So what the gameplay consisted of me for was conserving ammo and avoiding the enemies as much as possible. Speaking of avoiding enemies, gosh damn am I terrified of Mr. X. Anybody who's played the game knows what I'm talking about. By playing great and looking good, the RE2 remake is definitely one of the best last year. Don't sleep on this game, as it's one you'll put a lot of effort into. At number 2, I put Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. This was one of my most anticipated games this year because I am a huge fan of Igarashi's Castlevania games in general, so I picked it up day one because of that, and as a man who has played his fair share of IGA titles, I can say this one delivered and might probably be one of the best Metroidvanias you'll ever play. Most of the people who have played this game, I'm assuming, are big fans of games like Symphony of the Night and Aria of Sorrow, so you pretty much know what you're getting into. Exploring the 2D plane, defeating bosses to obtain powers that will let you progress towards other parts of the map, the usual Metroidvania stuff. But that doesn't stop the game from being the same, as there's whole new features that makes it completely fresh, as well as improved features from past games. The most important feature brought back from past games, I'd say, is the shard system, which is similar to the soul gathering system from the Sorrow games. Basically, if you kill an enemy multiple times, you obtain an ability from them, and it can range from new attacks to stat boosts. I found this side activity good as it changed up the combat. Sometimes it's also used to gain abilities to progress in the game, hence being a Metroidvania. Continuing on the shard system and transitioning into new features, Igarashi made collecting the same shards have importance as they increase its power rather than just sit there. Another huge new feature that makes this title a blast is item creation. Basically, it involves gathering materials dropped from enemies and bringing them to an area to combine them into something beneficial, like a health item or equipment. It's nothing special, but sweet since it's completely new to Igarashi's games. Because we have not seen a 2D Castlevania like this for a while, I was anticipating this game for how long, and I'm truly surprised this Kickstarter game lived up to the promise. Despite loving this game, it only takes up the second spot because it could become extremely easy during some moments, and there were some performance issues at times. But overall, for the price you can get it at, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is a must-buy. And finally, coming in at number 1 as my favorite game of 2019, I have to go with Devil May Cry 5. Man, am I surprised at myself and this game, because I knew I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't know I was going to love it this much. After the mixed title DMC that was a game set in a parallel universe, Capcom finally took back the reins to this iconic action series and brought us a proper sequel after 4. When playing this game, I couldn't seem to find any flaws on it except for a plot twist involving the main character being a bit of a deus ex machina. Speaking on that, I really enjoyed the story for tying up a loose end involving the protagonist, and sure, I might have gripes on the aforementioned, but I found the plot easy to follow. Talking about the level design and setting, it might pale in comparison to past DMC games according to some, but I found it nice and relaxing in the sense that I'm personally glad that they put it in a modern setting without too much obstacles. As for presentation, I believe that this is something everybody would be in agreement with, as it's the best in the franchise so far for how detailed the stages and character models are, along with the superb audio, especially with Devil Trigger being an amazing song. But obviously, these things are just compliments to what many people play Devil May Cry for, and that's the gameplay. In 5, you play as 3 different characters, and they all play differently, and I personally think no one character is bad to play. Personally, I thought Nero was easy to pick up with how he had a few weapons and an arm. The poster boy Dante was experimental like always with the various playstyles and weapons he collects. Finally, the new character B was a breath of fresh air as he provided a different way to go against enemies as he summoned creatures for attacking and you had to deliver the finishing blow at the end. On top of this, each route was different when you had to choose between characters. Correct me if I'm wrong, people. And that leads to some good replayability. Overall, I just couldn't find any problems with this game in general. Heck, it didn't even have any terrible microtransactions, which was a huge surprise. I'm excited in how 6 will turn out in story and gameplay. And yeah, buy this game please because it's that good. So those were my favorite games of 2019. I know this vid might be way too late, but hey, at least it's still January and better late than never. So that's pretty much it for this video. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching, take it easy, and then until next video, which I hope I do make,